Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
John Riggio joining us again, world-renowned architect, tennis player, tennis pro. He's back with us today live here on the show and on the Zoomcast, and we're going to talk more about his tennis background, which really impressed me because meeting him a long time ago, just knowing about him as an architect was fascinating enough. Then, lo and behold, you peel back the onion and the layers, and who knew he had such an extensive career in tennis and all the accolades. God bless you for having such amazing careers, plural. Welcome back.
Yes, thanks, Jill. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much. Please tell everybody a little bit about who you are. How do we find you?
Yes, my name is John Riggio, and I'll talk to you about the tennis playing. I have a page on Facebook. It's called John Riggio Pro Tennis Player, and there's a link to my webpage that lists my tennis experiences and matches, things like that. So today, I'd like to tell you about some interesting things. I think one of them I'd like to start off with is when I was playing back at Sutton East in Manhattan, and this was on my own tennis bubble within their whole block of a sports center they have there. And what's happening there is at that time, since it was called Sutton East back then, I went through the part where I needed to have a player name. And one of the names that I had selected at the time when they asked me was to make my name John East. And I think that was going to work pretty good. It was a simple name. And but I think what happened was the people in the sport ATP, they did not want to let me have that name. So my name didn't go as John East at the time. But that was one name I did select, and I thought that was a name that I could even take with me. There was no real connection with anything on that name. It was just like because it's named after the street there. It's on the east side of Manhattan. And so it had no connection to anything. So I think the name East was pretty good, and I could continue to use that name. That was one thing that was happening at that time. And another thing that was happening was over the years, my play was developing. And what happens is, as you learn tennis, I think you do this at any level, starting off, like if you're just starting off a level one, as you play an opponent, you realize like if your opponent would hit the ball to one side and then the ball goes past you and you can't hit the ball, you swing, you probably think about why that is happening. So so that the next game, you would probably try to devise a way to go and run over and get the ball and hit it back over the net. And I think you do that at any level. And this happens as you move up from the levels, from even like going from starting off with no level, then starting off level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You would slowly have to make like little patches. If you were to lose a match, you'd make a little patch wondering why you lost the match, how you would correct that problem. And this would go on slowly in time. And for my playing, since I was a top pro playing there and moving up through my different courts, every time I'd lose a match, I would always think about what was the reason why I lost the match. What shot was it that they were getting through? Because in tennis, I think at any level, if you were to lose 1 or 2 points, it could start to sort of cause a problem where you will end up losing the whole match. Because you lose 1 or 2 points, you might lose a game. That starts to make things worse and worse. And you could lose the whole match over just those few shots. And I think from that, what happened is, so whenever I lose a match, I would think about how to correct it. And one ability that I had, which is the reason why I was able to play as a top pro, was really to really plug those holes. I was able to figure out how to correct the problem. If someone, a lot of times people would have different type of trick shots. some people would have like a little shot maybe to the short right side of the court where you would have to try to run up and hit the ball back, or they would do the same kind of shot to the left side. Some people had also like maybe a hard shot down to the corner, or all kinds of things. Or you would go up to the net and they knew how to hit it over your head. So I know from playing my opponent, I had all those different shots to play against them. And then the one thing was to plug the hole of whatever winning shot that they had. And I was able to do that. I was able to figure out how to get my shot back. Then the next thing also with a strategy was also to how to hit the winning shot. If you were playing a game and you might get frustrated, you keep trying to hit the ball, say, to the player's left side. And every time you hit the ball to the player's left side, if the player was good enough, he can get back and hit the ball back, get the ball past you, and they could win that point. And then that could make you frustrated. So if you were to lose the match because you didn't get your winning shot in, that is another thing that was starting to happen, that you'd have to really think about how to improve your shot. Instead of hitting the ball, a lot of times people make the mistake of just hitting the ball back to the player, thinking they're going to make a mistake. And that usually doesn't happen, especially when you're playing with excellent tennis players. If you give them the ball right in front of them, they got to hit the ball really hard. It's got to go past you very possibly, and then you're going to have a problem. You're not going to win the game. Very possibly lose the whole match. So what happened was, at that time at Sutton East, I finally was able to put together the whole thing of improving my overall strategy. And this happened because I lost two matches in a row. I very rarely lost any two matches in a row. Usually maybe I lose one match and then I'm back on my winning streak. But so this time I lost two in a row. And this was a big shock. And my opponent was even telling me that they were passing tips on how to beat me to play. So to get rid of this idea that they could hit one shot and beat me playing, I really devised a new strategy. It was very interesting, similar to, like you said, like a Boolean strategy, where whenever they hit the ball, I had a certain kind of parameter to hit the ball either to the left side or to the right side, short or a long ball down by the baseline. And I was able to put this together as a new strategy. And I think after that time, when I put this strategy together, it immediately worked. The next match, I was back winning again. They couldn't figure out why, when they hit the ball, previously it was starting to make it where I'd lose the game. I completely got rid of that problem. And that made it where I was back on winning even more games than before. Of course, my sponsors there were so happy. And they really liked that I put the strategy together. I think going back, even the player Tony Roach, who I talked to, he gave me some pointers on playing, was really saying the same thing. He was telling me one goal I should have is to really put together my own strategy of playing. And at this point, I was able to do it, which was really amazing. And I think at that time I was playing, and I played some other players. I think one player I played at that time was during the Eastern. I won the Eastern that year, and I played Bradley Witt from Australia. And I remember playing him originally. He was #1 player from Australia. He had his own tennis bubble over in Australia, and he was a great player. But at that time, my game, even though I was a star, that they came to my court and played me, I improved my game, and all those players, I could beat them. So I won the match against him in particular, and I remember he was interested to learn my strategy of playing. So I gave him a lesson after we played. I won that tournament match. I gave him a lesson, and I taught him my strategy. I passed it on to him because him and the team, the Australian team, were helpful to me, and I gave him some pointers, and I think after that he won an extra couple matches in his tournament play, I think he was from what was happening there. I think he was returning back to Australia. He wasn't going to stay in the USA anymore, and he returned back to Australia, and that's what he planned at the time. And so I gave him that information of the strategy, and if he could make it happen for himself even more, I mean that was okay. And so I took the chances, and he wasn't able to beat me anyway with my strategy. Even though I told him about it. So, but it does work, and I think another player I really taught that strategy to was a player that was born in the Philippines that was on the Japanese team, and he took to playing with that strategy too. And I think that was another key to him becoming more successful in tennis. He started to win a lot of games with that strategy, and that was a really big breakthrough for me. But I think everyone starting off would do the same kind of thing. They would just try to patch the hole. If they lost the game, they realized like the player kept hitting it to my left side and I couldn't get to it. And then you have to try to put together a strategy on how to hit the ball back. And that is so. As far as that's concerned, I think at any time, even though I had the strategy that my percentage went up, I did lose a game every once in a while. And the same thing did have to happen with trying to plug the hole. I mean, there was still there, but it was greatly reduced, and that problem was greatly reduced. And so was one thing about my playing that I was able to do was devise a new tennis strategy that was successful and was helping and started to get rid of having to patch the game. I kept it to a minimum. So that was one thing that was very important. And I think that is something good. I think coming back to play, there was some interesting things about that with the strategy, and maybe I could write it down one day. Think about I could write the strategy down, and maybe I could spread it to other people. They could learn from it. So that's one possibility. And I think with that was also the tournament playing, which was very interesting. When I was younger, I had my tennis club. I started this tennis club. But one thing about the tennis club is I really didn't have any instruction on how to putting the club together. I think when I was younger, maybe my father taught me some things about tennis overall playing, and when I put my tennis club together, me and some friends in school, uh, the overall strategy was to really put players together that was similar playing. And then if whoever advanced would play someone a little bit higher with similar playing, and then whoever had lost would play someone who is similar playing, but either going up or down in the rankings that we had, like a group of players. And that was one thing that how I arranged the tennis club. And then when my excuse me.
It happens all the time to me.
Then,
So
then
how
when my
so?
then when the tennis coach from the school came over to really talk to me about my tennis club, as I started to talk to him, and that tennis club was then taken over by the school, and where he was directing all the games and everything. And then when I discussed to him how I put the matches together, and how we had all the students really were interested in playing, he was discussing that that style of playing with the club was really the same as how the pros work. So I was already very advanced with my playing organization. I was already playing the same style of tennis as the pros were doing. And the people in the club were very happy. They really liked it much better than playing like on the tennis team. And they really liked the tennis club way. And the tennis club was really the same as how the pros work. So when the pro matches started through Anthony Cambria, he was able to put the matches together, and I was already onto the idea of how the matches work. I got the idea of as you play better, as you win matches, you're then playing people who are at your same level, and it was very competitive. and so I was already onto the idea of how the pros worked. And I think that was one very interesting thing also about my ability to play tennis was my ideas were already more advanced, more like pro playing, and everyone was happy playing like that. They didn't have big blowout games, and so that was really the best way to do it. And I think that was really good. I think one interesting thing about tennis playing is that my year of tennis playing was still before some changes took place. I think the newest things as far as tennis was really the tennis rackets. At that time, when I was playing, everything switched from wood rackets over to metal rackets. So I was onto all the metal rackets from the start. My first Prince racket was metal racket, and but one thing that was really from the previous generation was our clothing. So all of the clothing, sneakers were really from more of the original style. And the original style was where you're wearing mostly white. And the shirts were always like cottage shirt. Preferred wearing cottage shirt, usually wearing mostly white, sneakers mostly white, socks mostly white. And I think back then they did specifically tell me what was going on with the clothing. I didn't have to guess at it. They told me they preferred all the players wearing mostly white. And you were allowed to wear some different solid color clothing, but they had to only be different sport colors. You can only wear things like sport red, sport yellow, sport blue, sport green, and you weren't allowed to wear any solid black. No black sneakers, no solid black pants, tops, anything like that. The only thing that were really in black color was just a stripe. You could have a stripe on your pants, top, on your sneakers. You could have a stripe of black on your sneakers. I think most sneakers, a lot of times they have like maybe a blue stripe or red stripe. But if they had sneakers that did have black stripe, it was okay. And you weren't allowed to wear anything like cut off t-shirts, things like that. And you couldn't wear any belts on your clothes either. You had to have the pants. Usually were long tennis pants with like pockets, but you couldn't have any belts on your clothes. And then I think as far as like the sneakers, very interesting. There was a whole talk about sneakers. I think sneakers with sneaker brands. I think when I was growing up, and since I was very
How
athletic,
many brands were there back
I
then?
I wore every brand. I tried on every brand, and I used to go to the store and I would pick a sneaker, different brands, and I could run through them in one afternoon. I think I sometimes the sneakers, if they were like a canvas top, the top eventually as I got older, the top would just come right off the sneakers. So I usually my sneakers with tennis, they're always a leather top sneaker. And I think there were different brands. I think very interesting. There was one brand called Pony, which I was just reading about the different brands of sneakers, and I see that Pony was called product of New York, product of New York City, and that was very interesting because some players around the world they were wearing Pony sneakers, and I think the
Mhm.
Pony sneakers they had another brand name too. So I think the sneakers in the other parts of the world didn't use the name Pony; they used another name, but it was the same sneaker. So a lot of people like to wear ponies, and I think I was wearing Converse sneakers. I sort of took the Converse sneakers. At the time, they gave me free sneakers from Prince Racket, and I also tried all the other different brands. I had every kind of brand: Adidas, Nike, Reebok, Fila, everybody. I tried every brand, and I used to wear them out. And Converse sneakers were pretty good. It was a pretty popular sneaker amongst the top pro players. I think the Converse sneaker wasn't too bad. I had a special order it eventually those sneakers, and uh, especially ordered them over there by Goldman Brothers in Hicksville, and so so those were really pro sneakers, and that was pretty good. And that has to do with the bottom of the sneakers. You see that they were like a blue rubber sneaker on the bottom. I think the better sneakers they usually have different color rubber bottoms compared to just the simple one color sneaker, which is usually a starter sneaker. And that was very interesting. I think I think today I noticed the sneakers are still developing very good. I think the Converse was a little bit advanced for that time, so that was good. And because they had all kinds of different things about them. But I think that is like a standard sneaker, and at the time. So I think a lot of sneakers were good. I think there were some sneakers that weren't in the US. There was one brand sneaker, I think it was Lotto, and they don't really sell them here too much, but that was a popular sneaker with a lot of the pros too. I noticed that they don't really sell them here. And and then of course today I think everyone knows all the major brands. You go into the sports store, they have all the brands are still there. I think
Yeah.
the overall the sneakers are made better today. I think any brand you buy today, the sneakers are made much better, much more like you say, better on your feet. They might have pull-out units.
And they can
Things
wash them
like
in
that.
the wash machine, most of the brands now, which is good
Yes,
without them falling apart so quick.
yes. I think the sneakers are made much better today than starting off. But I think the few brands I talked about, those were brands I think were made maybe a little bit better. People liked wearing them at the time and playing tennis. But I think today the brands pretty much they are all made a better quality. And I still try different kinds of brands of sneakers. But yeah, that's what was going on in the sneaker world with the tennis. And other people they used to talk about the tennis sneakers. I think the tennis sneakers, it could make a difference. If you were to wear a pair of sneakers back then and they had like a hard rubber on the bottom, you could have a problem if they don't bend good like today's sneakers. You can lose the match.
Yeah.
If the sneakers did not bend good back then, you had this thing about having to break in sneakers to wear them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Today, I
Yep.
don't think they have that problem anymore. You wear a pair of sneakers today, you're walking, you have no problem running around. Back then, if you bought a pair of sneakers, you'd have to really break them in. You'd have to start to
Yeah.
loosen the bottom, the rubber. A lot of times it was like a white bottom rubber or even a gum rubber
Yep. The
bottom
white.
on some sneakers. And that can become a big problem. You have a new pair of sneakers and you really need to break them in and you have to play a match. You have a problem there.
I'm
That
thinking of
was serious.
blisters and pain. But we are just about out of time for this segment. I know we're coming back. We're going to talk more about you in the tennis world, and let's just wrap up this conversation about the sneakers. Go ahead.
I think so. I think that's about it. But I think I was just telling you a little bit of piece of the past with
Yeah.
that. But the sneakers are much better now, similar to all the different improvements with the tennis equipment. And so that's really what was going on. It was just a very interesting fact to talk about.
Awesome. And of course, we'll be back in just a moment. How do we reach you?
Yes, you can go onto my Facebook page at John Riggio, pro tennis player, and there you'll see some photographs of me there, on some videos, and you see a link to a list that shows my matches and other information about my tennis playing, and also all the videos here too are listed on Facebook, so you can watch all of them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, John Riggio. We'll be right back. We're going to discuss some more topics, some stuff in the news, right? Most in
Yes.
particular, we'll do that. In the meantime, we'll be right back with more.
Hello, my name is John Riggio. I'm the CEO of John Riggio, RA Architect, LLC. I provide architect services in the New York City metropolitan area. That includes New York City, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. My areas are specifically Long Island, the 5 boroughs of New York City, Westchester, Yonkers. In New Jersey, it is North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey. In Philadelphia, the areas are the Philadelphia metropolitan area. You can find out more information about my company at www.johnriggio.com. That's spelled JOHNRIGGIO.com. And there you will find out a description of my work. It shows a portfolio, pictures of the different job types. And I also have my contact information there. It shows my business address. From there, you can contact me and we can discuss your project. First, we will make an initial consultation, and then from there, we will then go over designing your project and then constructing your project. So I hope to hear from you soon.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back. We are joined by pro tennis player John Riggio and, of course, our architect. And today we're talking more about his tennis career, which is pretty exceptional. And if you just heard the first part of the newscast, we talked a lot about, well, in the end there, the fashion with the sneakers. But I know you want to highlight some things that are in the news lately, which is kind of important. What did you want to share about the tennis world and what's happening?
Yes, I think, well, first, since I had discussed my tennis page, what I like to do is I like to just put up my my tennis page. I amended it from the last time.
Okay.
Let me just show you to you here. Let's get this on here. Where is it? Oh, I have to put it on the board here first. Okay, now it's ready to go. Okay, good. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so I amended this last week and I added some information on here. I think the name John East, I didn't list because it never was officially listed as a name or really used it as a name. It was just a proposed name. And I added all that information. I think from the last time I just added one piece of information was I did receive the ATP player with the most wins again back when I was playing with Perot. So that was pretty good. And this just shows all the different things on here, and then I've just updated just the end thing with the visit over to Japan. So I just this is
and
this is just showing
remember
this,
that
and
car.
added the remaining videos.
Oh,
Okay, so
awesome.
okay, so I can stop the share on this. Okay, so then so that list of information about my tennis career you can find if you go to my Facebook page, John Riggio Pro Tennis Player, and then I have a link there. You just click on it and it shows a whole list of information about my tennis playing. It's very interesting. I'm sure you like it. And so I think today, as far as the news stories is, well, yeah, one interesting thing about the past, I think a lot of people don't know this, and it's very interesting, was they decided to have the tennis reintroduced into the Olympics again. And I think what happened was one of the trainers for the Olympics, and he was someone who was there around my games and things and knew about my playing. He was going around writing a list of players that are going to play in the Olympics. And I think I had said this a few times before, but he asked me about my playing status, if I'm a pro player. And when I said, yes, I'm a pro player, going through the parameters, having more than $3,000 worth of equipment or payments of any kind. Of course, it was way over $3,000. And I think I explained each match is like $20,000 payment. So that obviously puts me into way over $3,000. And then, so what he was saying was he was asking each player there, which are all the top pros from around the world, and of course the U.S. players were eligible to play for the U.S. team. He was asking them if they wanted to play in the Olympics, and a lot of them, instead of acting a certain way that yes, they are pro players, they were told. He gave a very simple question, maybe like a funny question, do you want to play in the Olympics? Are you a pro player? And they just said yes, and they didn't make any money, So they did get to play in the Olympics, but I think overall the Olympics is really amateur sports. Usually amateur sports for tennis means you didn't go that high yet. Unless you're playing in a world of more collegiate or non-pro playing, which obviously that isn't what was taking place. You had to win matches and then everything would work as far as the pro playing, which is all the top players. So I think at that time, they did go play in the Olympics, and there was that big controversy that everyone read about, and I think it caused a big problem. And I think, as far as a personal level, and my level, when I went to China, and they came out about me being the tennis pro and everything, the first thing they told me was the same thing: was America, cheated in the Olympics, and they caught them that they weren't amateur players. And of course, I explained that I was honest. I did not play. I was a pro player. But that is one interesting thing. So they all knew about it, and this is years and years later. They all knew about that. So it was sort of embarrassing. But I knew the story very exactly, very closely, because the Olympic coach was around my playing the whole time, and he's the one writing down all the pro players that got to go play in the Olympics, and it caused a big problem. Now, I think since I explained that I'm a U.S. player, I signed a contract as a U.S. player when I was younger. And so when that whole controversy came about, I don't know if everyone knows this, but a lot of the U.S. players, they were reprimanded very harshly. They had to give back their medals, and a lot of players I know, they went to court, and they unfortunately they were convicted. They some of them had to go to jail for like 6 months. I mean, it was really horrible, and or they had to do a plea bargain of some kind that got out of it. And I think since I was a U.S. player, that even though I was honest and didn't and didn't play, I think what I was told, I don't know why they told me this, but some people told me that they had it where I had to sit out some tournaments. Now the tournaments, the whole thing, what tournament I'm playing and when the tournament is, I have no idea. I'm not the organizer of any of my tournaments. I do not apply for them, pay for them myself. I have no idea. So they could have me play 20 tournaments. They could have me play 25 tournaments. I would never know the difference. So, but I was told that at least one or two people told me that I had to miss a certain number of tournaments. And I knew at that time I was probably going to win them. So I did have to sit out of those tournaments because of this whole thing with the Olympics. And so as far as my playing, I really did not know the difference. But I think to them it was more important because it was all part of this whole controversy with the Olympic playing and the tennis playing. And I think that that whole thing was part of like maybe what they call like a plea bargain. And I think that helped one or more players. I think it kept them out of jail. I mean, it was really pretty serious what happened, and it was really sad. I think for a while they're making a big deal of it, but I think I see it isn't really that um, visible. I was just researching the internet again, and I see they're not really talking about it too much. But I think it's since it affected me individually when I went overseas. In Japan, they didn't say anything about it, but I think in China they did know all about that controversy, and it sort of put a mark on the U.S. with tennis that they did catch them at a controversy, and then I think that trainer Bob, he was the guy writing everything down. And I think he was doing it like maybe like a practical joke. He probably never expected something would really come about it, but it turned out to be really serious. And some of the U.S. players really had to pay pretty bad. They really did for participating in the Olympics there, which was pretty sad. And so that I think since I took it personally, I'm talking about it. So it did affect me a little bit, and I think it did put a mark on the U.S., which is pretty sad. And so that is really, I think if you're a pro player, why would anyone want to step down to an amateur? I mean, obviously an amateur is supposed to be someone who's really coming up, maybe very young, and it's a really different line of playing. That's why I thought at the same time, because I know going through my coach explained the whole thing that if I wasn't able to advance at a certain pace through the pros, I would just play ITF, which is a minor league. And so to play in ATP, the pro league, I mean, at the top pro league, that is really so much higher. And so to want to get myself in the Olympics just it doesn't make any sense. That would really didn't make any sense to me. I really wouldn't want to do it. And I think so the whole thing that took place there with the Olympics was pretty sad. And it did affect me at all. And so I think they wanted me to know that I did have to miss some matches because of the Olympics, that it was affecting me as a US player and things like that. So that's what was happening there. And then I think well, one interesting thing about my tennis career that I was explaining, I think if I told you the story, like when I from the Jericho courts, they had me move over to the U.S. Tennis Center, Court 33, and I showed the example where Court 33 is on my webpage. But you probably wonder why would I go to Court 33 and then they gave me problems? Most people they wouldn't do that. Most people you would think you would go to a court where everything would work out great. We wouldn't have any problems at all. But in fact, they did know that going to Court 33, there very possibly was some problems. There were other tennis players that were there. They did encounter strange problems. There were terrorists, and then but they had me go there anyway. I think the other choice was for me to play at Fresh Meadows. Fresh Meadows has its own stadium. It's just like 15 minutes down the road in Queens, New York. There's called the Fresh Meadows. They have the Fresh Meadows Stadium there. The Australian team was staying there. That was their main place of playing. And the Australian team was very nice and friendly with me. We always had a lot of fun playing. But that isn't where I played. I played at the U.S. Tennis Center on Court 33. And they did give me my own court there. And had use of, in fact, all the total 6 courts that were next to me. And so that was pretty good. And I think it was very beneficial for them. But I think as far as everything going so perfect, obviously that wasn't what was happening there. There was some problems that were taking place, and I think eventually from the problems, what happened was even though Court 33 they renovated, made it official courts with bleachers, seats all around it, television, international television, regular television, local television was on the courts. I ended up getting that whole thing moving over to Alley Pond, where they made that tennis center for me. So that is what was happening. But going to the U.S. Tennis Center wasn't the easiest path. And I think going there also, everyone in the pro tennis knows at that time you had to go and keep your ranking there with the U.S. Tennis Center, which was located there in Fresh Meadows, New York City and Queens. And they also call it the National Tennis Center. And so that was one thing that was happening at the time. And that was one thing that was giving people was a little unstable. And then what was happening was also that was sort of giving a problem, like when you go to Adipan, the same people are coming over. So if there's any problem existing at the U.S. Tennis Center, it would follow you over there anyway. So that was what was happening too. And so that was interesting. And then I think then the next thing was very interestingly, the ATP, I think we were doing very good with the ATP, but I think the ATP, of course, like anything, the people that weren't perfect. I mean, there was nothing perfect. One, there was a problem with the player name. Whoever they had assigned to doing the player names caused a big problem. And they didn't really get the player names too good, I think. So it had problems over the years with the player name. In fact, something did happen to the person working there too. They eventually, with the player names, they were trying to force player names on me and probably other people. And they did have to do something about the person on the other line of the phone there. They had to have the authorities do something to him. And because he wasn't really allowed to really play around with people's player names too much. It was starting to cause a lot of problems. And in fact, I was watching the television. I see they show this tennis player. They say this is like he was playing over by the U.S. Tennis Center, and they say this guy is an excellent tennis player. They just showed him as an example, and they just showed him hitting the ball a few times in a match on a tennis court over there. And they said his name is Socks. And no first name, no last name, just Socks. So I don't know if
Never heard of him, no.
So I don't know. I think this might be another example that people still have that kind of problem. Maybe they're using like a nickname they gave him to play, but no real definite first and last name. And they said that he was like, a great player coming up. So that was interesting. I saw that little piece on the television. It was pretty good. But I think just like a little indication, giving someone like a nickname like that it's probably going to change. I mean, that was just interesting. And then I think one very interesting thing is aside from the names with the ATP, I think, like I said, any person they're not perfect. And I know when I was playing at one point, they had an ATP representative came over, and when they were talking in private, talking to my sponsors, they were claiming that they were really a god. I mean, I think maybe from people really wanting to play tennis, person was really getting, really, really high and saying that they were a god. So what happened? I think this person probably thought that they were getting away with it, and it turns out they were really doing something very wrong, like maybe like a con artist. And they had to have the authorities really apprehend the person. And from what I heard, that they did get penalized a certain way, and so the person who was saying that they were a god, and I think it was implied that they were maybe making statements. Um, I don't know, what statements, but it wasn't allowed, and they did do something about them too with the authorities, and it was proven that they were not allowed to act a certain way like that. And I don't know, maybe that is probably because like in tennis, I think not everyone's willing to contest things that go wrong. A lot of people, when people, even your opponent cheats on the court, or already is starting to get up where they're coaching and they're playing an opponent, they cheat a lot of times and they tell their opponent they want them to lose the match. And a lot of players that are playing, they might agree with them. They say, okay, they'll lose the match, and they don't complain at all. So a lot of people, they might have been just getting away with it. I think one thing about my career is that I did not take anything from the opponent. I think even starting out when I was a junior, if there was someone cheating, I used to make the complaint about them. It would go through the channels, and I didn't take the complaint back. It was honest truth about them, and things did start to happen. And I think overall, a lot of people were happy about that. And this was happening throughout my career. And I was happy that I was able to get sponsors that were sort of acting the same way. They did not want to take this kind of thing from the people. If there was a problem, something really going wrong, it really had to go to not only to league penalties, it really got very serious. Some things they were even getting caught for things like grand larceny. Cheating related into them getting awards of money, and they were getting a prize trophies and things. And then when either going through myself or through my sponsors, it ended up going through the authorities, and they end up having a serious problem, having to give the money back, give the trophies back. I heard some of them, they did even have to get penalized even worse with the jail. So it was really, the one thing about my playing was I wasn't taking their problems from the other side of the court, and neither were my sponsors, which was something very good. I think what was developing with a lot of other people, they thought different. They had people doing outrageous things instead, and I think a lot of people thought the outrageous things were getting ahead because they were still in newspapers, they were still in like Tennis Magazine. I think like with Tennis Magazine, things were getting so outrageous with Tennis Magazine, they ended up banning Tennis Magazine here in the USA in the public libraries where I lived. I lived on Long Island, New York, and they ended up banning the Tennis Magazine for that reason. It started to develop into where it became too much of lies, and had to do with them acting outrageous, and no one really stopped. So when I was playing, if they really were bothering my tennis game, causing me problems, and then obviously it was going to my um, sponsors where they were causing problems, they did not just keep it quiet. They really did take action on all the different things, and so the different sponsors I had starting from the beginning, we did do things against the opponents, and I think it was working much better like that. And I think because whatever was happening there was a very strange. It was they were doing all kinds of strange things, horrible things, and it wasn't very good. And so that was what was happening. I think another interesting story was, it's just a smaller story, was when I was teaching, had my own tennis bubble and everything. One student that the ATP assigned to me, he was there for a series of lessons I gave him, and it was the usual lessons. Lessons were to teach him strategy, winning shots, how to win matches is what it was. It wasn't a starter instructions. It was really a very advanced. And one interesting thing was, so one day he comes to play, and we're playing there, and he says for some reason, he goes, "It was cold outside last night." And I said, "Okay, so it was cold outside." I said, "Well, do you have the heat on the side, and everything?" He said, "No, it's been cold the last few days." He said, "Because he's been sleeping outside." He became completely homeless. He really did not have any money, and which was very strange. And he ended up sleeping outside. And I think at that point he was going to leave, but I think someone ended up helping him out. So that's what was happening with him, and so that was really very another little interesting thing that happened. And I think that is maybe one example of why a lot of people were saying about people having a side job, was to try to get rid of that problem. So I think that is really the example of what they're talking about, that there wasn't really any money there for him to stay in an apartment of any kind. So that is pretty sad. But yeah, I think that is really one example of what was happening. And okay, so I think yeah, so those were some interesting stories. I think I just wanted to give
You always have good stories.
some interesting stories, some inside stories. I think like with the Olympic story, it did affect me personally. There was a lot of firsthand information on that, and it it but I didn't do the wrong thing at that time. I think I did the correct thing, and so that was very interesting. And so those were really some interesting stories. I think I left some names and things like that, but yeah, so you get the idea of what's happening, and so that was pretty good.
And now you, as a tennis pro, as an architect, which is a whole nother career, which we spent many shows on, but again, managing it all. And how often are you playing tennis these days now, John?
Yeah, I'm still playing 3 days a week. I,
Awesome.
I have I have my own meetup. It's here in central New Jersey, and I'm still playing 3 days a week. I teach one day of the week, and the other 2 days playing with some uh, local players. They can sign up, and my meetup is pretty good. I have here. Let me see how many members I have here. Let me just look at the. I can show you this. Let me share this with you. Let me just go on here. Just get the page up.
Yeah,
Okay, good. Let me share this with you.
sure.
This is It's pretty good. Okay, so this here is if you can see the page here, this is the meetup, Central New Jersey Tennis, and you see I have approaching 1,500 players. I have here a little video of our discussions here, the podcast. And it just shows all the different kinds of players here. I think if I don't know if you've ever went out to meetup.com, shows a whole list of players.
Yeah.
Here, members, males and females. It's a co-ed group. And just have here just a little description saying about the group. And this shows some of the events. Let me just show you some past events. Okay, just so you see all past events here. And I think this here you can see the events, people showing up to play. And this has been going on for a while. Let me see in the summer it gets pretty busy with players. I think we had a little stoppage with those forest fires with the smoke in the air. So I think a few of the events had to really, people couldn't show up and play. That was something that happened this summer that was interesting. I think each year the weather, sometimes the summer starts a little early, sometimes it ends a little late. So it depends on what's happening there too. It's been staying a little warmer this year. So everyone usually comes out to play outside until it gets like 60 degrees. Then I have the indoor court. And then I have, let's see, some pictures. Let me just show you. These are pictures from the different events. You see this one's indoors over here. This is outdoors with the lights on in Rahway. And we have a few different parks. We play at the Thomas Edison Park, play at the park in New Brunswick, and play over here at the Roosevelt Park.
You're a busy man.
In Edison. So these are pictures of everyone playing here. And let me see, this is okay, this one is there. Okay, so this shows like a series of photographs.
Even to learn how to play tennis, I saw it. Nice.
Yes, so we'll see events. And then this here is some upcoming events. People are RSVPing already to play the events. And then I think over here, just go on to the main page. I also have here,
New Jersey
you can either make a donation to playing. All the events are free. The indoor you have to pay for the court. This isn't too bad. We share the court fee, and that is what's going on. This is on Meetup, and it's called Central New Jersey Tennis Meetup. So this is how I've been keeping most of my tennis going. I was also playing some USTA tennis, playing some flex leagues in previous years, and so I've been playing pretty good. So that's what I have here, and let's stop the share on that.
Beautiful.
Okay, so
thank you so much.
Yeah, so that shows my current playing right now, and yeah, I was playing all different kinds of things. I've been playing some flex league in the past too.
Beautiful. Well, let's do this. We unfortunately are out of time. We got to talk about how we can reach out to you. Tell us the websites again.
Yes, the best way to go is just go to my Facebook page at John Riggio, Pro Tennis Player. I have my telephone number, my email there. You can send a message through the Facebook, and if you have any questions, and then from there you could also go to the meetup. If you're interested in playing some tennis, you could sign up, RSVP for the event. My events are free, and you could play some tennis.
Perfect. We'll do it. Thank you so much, and pleasure to have you back as always. And for all your architectural needs, reach out to John Riggio too. That's a whole nother side of him, which of course, multifaceted. Thank you again, John.
You're welcome. Nice talking to you, Jill.
You too. Thank you. Could you do extensions on houses out in Suffolk County and Long Island? Are you licensed to work out here?
Yes.
I want an extension on my house one day. Like just at the pool, not yet, but I have an idea. And you're the only architect that I know. So, okay, good to know. Just making sure. Work in New York.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.